Many years ago, in a small town nestled between mountains, there lived a man named Miguel. He was 42 years old, with hair beginning to turn gray at the temples and hands calloused from years of hard work. Miguel was a carpenter, a trade he had inherited from his father, who had learned it from his own father. Throughout his life, he followed the path everyone expected of him, like a boat sailing through already charted waters, never questioning its destination. His workshop was on the same narrow street where he had been born, just a few steps from the house where he grew up. Every day, Miguel woke up at 6 in the morning, drank his bitter black coffee, and walked the same 200 steps to the worn wooden door of his shop. There, amid the smell of sawdust and the steady rhythm of his tools, he shaped cabinets, tables, and chairs for neighbors who had known him since childhood. But there was something about Miguel that few people noticed. When he was alone, working in silence, his eyes would sometimes rest on the window overlooking the valley. From there, he could see the river cutting through the landscape, winding between rocks and trees with a determination that fascinated him. The river never stopped. It didn't matter whether it was raining or sunny, winter or summer. The water always moved forward, searching for the sea Miguel had never seen. One day, something inside him began to change. Maybe it was age catching up with him, bringing that restlessness that makes us question the choices we've made. Maybe it was the weariness of repeating the same motions for decades, feeling life slip through his fingers like fine sand. Or maybe it was simply the right moment to awaken. Miguel began to feel like a stone in the middle of the river. The waters of time rushed around him, but he remained still, watching everything and everyone move forward, while he stayed stuck in the same place. His childhood friends had moved away, traveled, and discovered other places. Some returned during town festivals with stories of distant beaches, big cities, and snow-covered mountains. Meanwhile, Miguel remained there, bound by invisible chains called fear, responsibility, and expectation. The truth was that Miguel had a dream he kept locked deep in his chest, like someone hiding a precious jewel for fear it might be stolen or declared worthless. Since he was young, he had dreamed of seeing the ocean. He dreamed of traveling across the country, meeting new people, other cultures, other ways of living. But there was always an excuse: his father's business to take care of, his elderly mother who needed attention, the bills to pay, the fear of disappointing those who expected so much from him. After his father passed away and his mother followed a few years later, Miguel thought he would finally be free. But he discovered that the strongest chains were the ones he had forged himself: the guilt of abandoning the family workshop, the shame of admitting he wanted something different, the fear of starting over, of being called irresponsible, selfish, or crazy. "How can you even think about closing the workshop?" people would say. "Your father would be so disappointed. What about the family tradition? You're already over 40, Miguel. This isn't the time for daydreams." The voices came from all sides, like stones trying to block the course of a river. That was when Miguel began to watch the river more closely. He noticed that the water never asked permission to move on. It didn't apologize for flowing around the rocks in its path. It didn't stop to explain itself to the banks it left behind. The river simply flowed, following its essential nature, its reason for being. And in that, there was a deep wisdom that Miguel was beginning to understand. One spring morning, after a sleepless night, Miguel made a decision. He would sell the workshop. He would set aside enough money to survive for a few months and at last leave that town. He would see the ocean. He would travel. He would discover who Miguel was outside those familiar walls, far from the eyes that defined him only as the carpenter, Antonio's son, the one who never left town. People's reactions were exactly as he had expected. Some were shocked, others were disappointed. Many said he was making a terrible mistake, throwing away years of work and tradition. Some called him crazy, ungrateful, irresponsible. The criticism fell on him like heavy rain, and there were moments when Miguel almost gave up, almost turned back, almost apologized for wanting to live his own life.
But then he would look at the river. The river never apologized. When it came upon a rock too large to move, it simply flowed around it. When it met a cliff, it became a waterfall, spectacular and free. When people built dams, it waited patiently until it overflowed and found a new path. The river taught that moving forward was not a matter of selfishness, but of honoring one's own essence, one's own nature, one's own purpose. Miguel understood that spending an entire life doing what others expected of him was not virtue. It was simply fear disguised as kindness. He realized that taking care of himself, pursuing his dreams, and living according to his own values did not mean abandoning anyone. It simply meant stopping the abandonment of himself. On the day he closed the workshop for the last time, Miguel felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the memories left behind, for the conversations with his father in that very space, for the years of his life those walls had witnessed. Relief for finally having the courage to move forward, to choose himself, to flow like the river he so deeply admired. He slung a backpack over his shoulders and left without grand goodbyes. A few true friends walked with him to the road, hugged him tightly, and wished him luck. They understood. The others, who judged him, would eventually find other things to talk about, other lives to question. Miguel traveled for months. He saw the ocean and spent hours gazing at the endless horizon, finally understanding where that vast blue expanse that had always lived in his dreams came from. He met people who lived in ways completely different from his own, with other values, other priorities, other definitions of success and happiness. He learned that there is not just one right way to live, but infinite possibilities, each valid in its own way. During his travels, Miguel worked in many places. His skills as a carpenter were useful anywhere, and he discovered that he could support himself while exploring the world. He made friends in coastal towns, helped build houses in rural communities, and taught his craft to young people eager to learn. And in every place, he carried with him the river's lesson. Moving forward does not mean forgetting where we come from, but honoring who we are and who we want to become. Over time, Miguel noticed something curious. The people who had criticized him the most when he left, who said he was making a mistake, who predicted his failure and unhappiness, were the very ones living lives of quiet desperation. They were people who had buried their own dreams so deeply that they no longer even remembered them, and who could not bear to see someone have the courage to do what they themselves never did. Miguel understood that it wasn't their fault. It was the result of a society that teaches us to be stones when we should be learning to be rivers. A society that teaches us to stay still is a virtue, and that moving forward is selfishness. That makes us believe we owe explanations to everyone, except ourselves. But the river doesn't think that way. The river knows that its purpose is to flow, and that to do so it must move forward, not with arrogance, not crushing everything and everyone in its path, but with the gentle strength of one who understands its own nature. The river nourishes what it encounters along the way, but it does not stop because of it. The river gives life, but it does not sacrifice its own essence in the process. A few years passed. Miguel, now with grayer hair and a face marked by the sun of many roads, eventually returned to his hometown. But he returned different. He returned whole. He returned as someone who had found himself, who knew his own story, and was no longer afraid of it. To his surprise, many people welcomed him with admiration. "You had the courage to do what I never did. confessed an old neighbor, his eyes filled with tears. "I always wanted to be a musician, but—" And the sentence hung in the air, heavy with regret. Others, especially the younger ones, looked at Miguel as proof that it was possible to choose a different path, that it wasn't necessary to follow the script everyone expected.
Miguel didn't return to stay. He remained only for a few weeks, reconnected with old friends, and visited the places of his childhood. Then he left again, because he understood that this was no longer his place, and that was okay. It's okay to leave behind what no longer serves us. It's okay to move forward. It's okay to choose yourself. Today, wherever he may be, Miguel carries with him the wisdom of the river. He learned that life is not a competition to see who stays in the same place the longest, but a journey of discovering who we truly are and having the courage to live according to that truth. He learned that we do not owe apologies for growing, for changing, for evolving, for moving forward. The river does not apologize for moving on. It simply flows, confident in its purpose, certain of its direction. And in this constant movement, in this courage to never stop despite obstacles, in this determination to reach the sea that awaits, it teaches us the most important lesson of all. Life is movement, and stopping out of fear of disappointing others is the only disappointment that truly matters, the disappointment we cause ourselves. Miguel learned this, and in learning it, he became free. Not free from responsibilities or challenges, but free from the invisible prison of other people's expectations. Free to be who he was always meant to be. Free to flow, like the river, toward his own sea. Thank you for being here, for taking a few minutes of your day to reflect on life, on change, on courage. Thank you for being someone who seeks to grow, who looks for inspiration, who doesn't settle for merely existing, but wants to truly live. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you were like Miguel at some point in your own journey. Maybe you too are caught between what others expect of you and what your heart truly desires. Maybe you too are looking out the window, watching the river flow, wondering when it will be your turn to move forward. And I want you to know this: your time is now. Every day you choose to be a little better than you were yesterday, you are honoring your own existence. Every time you face your fears, question your limiting beliefs, or take a small step toward your dreams, you are becoming the best version of yourself. And that is extraordinary. It doesn't matter whether your steps are big or small. It doesn't matter if you're just starting now or if you've been on this journey of self-discovery and transformation for a long time. What matters is that you are here, present, seeking, growing, evolving. You are becoming your own river. And speaking of that, if this message touched your heart in any way, if Miguel's story resonated with something inside you, I have a request to make. Subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you become part of a community of people who, just like you, are committed to their own growth. People who believe that life can be more than simply repeating the same patterns. People who want to flow, to transform, to evolve. Here on this channel, we share inspiring stories, deep reflections, and messages that can help you find strength in difficult moments and clarity when the path feels confusing. We want to walk alongside you on this journey of transformation. So, if you're not subscribed yet, click the subscribe button now. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new content. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and share it with someone who also needs to hear that it's okay to move forward. Remember, the river doesn't apologize for moving on, and you don't have to either. Keep flowing, keep growing, keep becoming the best version of yourself. A big hug, and see you in the next video.